the gift taken for granted. In the quaint town of Riverbend, where neighbors still greeted each other by name and doors were often left unlocked, lived an elderly man named Mr. Caldwell. He was a retired carpenter with kind eyes and hands weathered by decades of honest work. Though he lived alone, he found joy in helping others with small repairs, often refusing any payment except a smile and a thank you. One winter, a young couple moved into the house next door, Daniel and Mira. Newly married and tight on money, they were struggling to make their house feel like a home. The old place creaked, the heat barely worked, and the front steps were rotten through. Mr. Caldwell noticed one morning that Mira slipped on the icy steps, barely catching herself. That afternoon, without being asked, he measured, sawed, and built a new set of steps from his own stock of wood. By nightfall, the job was done. When the couple returned from work, they were surprised, but not in the way one might expect. Why would he do that without asking? Daniel grumbled. He probably wants something in return, Mira added, peeking through the blinds. Neither of them went over to say thank you. The next day, Caldwell noticed a package on their porch. He walked it over and rang the bell. Mira opened the door, sighed, and said, "You could have just left it." Caldwell smiled gently and said, "Just wanted to make sure it didn't get wet." "Right," she muttered, closing the door before he could say more. Over the weeks, Mr. Caldwell continued his quiet acts of kindness, fixing a loose shutter, unclogging their gutters after a storm, even shoveling their walkway before sunrise. But each gesture was met with silence, or worse, suspicion. Daniel once muttered to a neighbor, "He needs to mind his business. He's always hovering like he owns the place." One day, Caldwell fell ill. The town's postman noticed the newspapers piling up and called for help. When the ambulance came, Daniel and Mira peeked through their curtains but didn't go out, not even when the stretcher rolled by. A few days later, a for sale sign appeared on Mr. Caldwell's lawn. He'd decided to move in with his daughter in another state. Only when he was gone did Daniel and Mira notice the small things, how the porch light used to be fixed before they noticed it had gone out, how the leaves were always swept, how the roof had stopped leaking. Their home slowly began to fall apart again, not from time, but from neglect. And it hit them. They had lost something priceless, not just a neighbor, but a quiet, generous presence who had cared for them more than they'd cared to notice. Their ingratitude had turned a blessing into a burden, and the door to kindness had quietly shut. Moral: gratitude is the fuel that keeps kindness alive. Take it for granted, and even the most generous hearts may turn away. Like, share, follow and comment.